Okay, here we are again. Welcome back, everybody. This is the We Quit Booze Brothers, which is a podcast where we try to have honest, no fluff conversations about our various experiences of quitting alcohol. And with me, as always, is my brother Matt. Hello, Matt.
Good evening, Mark. Yes, we're back. It seems like it's been a long time. I don't know if it has or not, but we have quite busy schedules, believe it or not. But so it means that sometimes we record on the weekend, sometimes we do evenings. This is an evening. Well, we're Thursday today, so but yeah, good to be back. We've got a great little topic actually. Something Mark found an article which he read in the UK. So I'm going to let him obviously introduce it, but I think a really interesting one tonight.
Yeah, we are a little bit behind schedule because it is Thursday, and I think we're almost a week behind. But there you go. I don't think. I think people have probably just about managed to cope in our absence. Anyway, so right. Well, the conversation we wanted to have today was. I don't know if this is going to work, but there was an article in the paper. Is that coming out the right way around, or?
It yeah, looks yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So. I spotted this. It was in the Financial Times, so you can
Really,
make
the
you're right. Yeah, yeah. Insert your own joke. Somebody obviously left it in a waiting room, and I was looking for a comic or something, and just happened to pick it up. But the headline really leapt out on me, and basically, it's all sort of wrapped up in the ever decreasing sales and profits for the big alcohol companies, and this particular headline is about Heineken, and essentially the headline is Heineken stirs debate on health with toast to beer's role as a social lubricant. And it's really an interesting topic and one we wanted to have a conversation about. So I just want to read a paragraph from the sort of initial introduction to this, and it says here that public health bodies are hardening their stance against alcohol, prompting the industry to talk up the non-health benefits of drinking, such as socializing. The outgoing US Surgeon General said this year that alcoholic beverages should carry cancer warnings, while the World Health Organization has been ratcheting up a campaign against moderate drinking. So where this is really interesting, so basically this is an article about, so it says is that investors have soured on Heineken after 2 years of weak performance and a string of earnings misses, with shares falling by a fifth from highs in 2023. So basically you've got, what this tells me is the drinks industry is getting found out, right? There's no hiding place anymore. We've the sort of culture, media, popular culture has created this fabricated view of alcohol in our society that basically has sort of fooled all of us, has tricked all of us for years and years and years, I think. And what Heineken are trying to do now is argue that, yeah, basically when you read the article, it's essentially an admission by the drinks company to say, okay, yeah, we know it's bad for you, but there are other benefits because it's good for socializing. And it immediately reminded me of a comment that was, I think it was one of our readers or, one of our listeners put in the comments, and he said, I always drank to be social and to make friends, and ended up never feeling so lonely and anxious. And I just think, isn't that just fucking classic? That just again, this is a podcast about our experiences, so we
Yeah,
don't don't claim that this is going to be everybody's experience, but my experience of life as a drinker was that I created what I would consider to be sort of an avatar version of me. I had to basically kind of live in the world as somebody who drank. But when I drank, it made me more outgoing than I think I normally am, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing.
yeah.
But what it did do is it made me feel quite vulnerable, actually, in a sort of social context, because I felt like the friendships that I was forging and developing were always done under the banner of me being quite drunk. One of the other ironic things about when I used to drink as well is that I would spend most of the night pretending not to be drunk. So I would drink and then sort of try to operate as though the alcohol wasn't impacting me at all. But of course it was. And I remember very often the next day having that, what did I say last night? Did I say anything that was embarrassing? I'd quite often text people as a sort of a feeler, just to say, "Oh, good night last night. Really good to see you." But because I was drunk, because I was drinking, because I was fundamentally not being myself, I was socializing in a way that was not truly the person that I am. And now that I've quit drinking and now that I've spent the last 10 years living, socializing, forging friendships without alcohol, what I realize is that I was feeling this. There's nothing more lonely, I don't think, than feeling like a friendship you've established is based on a version of you that isn't genuine, that isn't genuinely you, that it's based on some sort of way that you present yourself to the world. So it's a really interesting. I've got more to say on it, but I'm conscious that I always do this thing where I end up doing loads of talking, and I need to sort of just. So I'm going to sort of pause there. Maybe leave the door open for you, Matt, and you can sort of come in and step in and give me your kind of thoughts on it, and then I'll give you some other thoughts and things that I've sort of reflected on as a result of this article.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because for me, in some ways, it kind of reeks of desperation. From an industry that's looking for a foothold on how can we play this to me good for you. Let's say that it's a social lubricant. Let's say that it can be. I think they even touch on the idea that it can be good for mental health. I mean, I think that is a really dangerous line to walk. For the industry.
Yeah, they do. They talk about how, we live in a world which is disconnected and social media and yada yada, and they're trying to persuade the world that by drinking you're kind of bringing people together. So yes, there is definitely a line of rhetoric in there which is starting to creep in about.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I know, and it does mention the word moderation quite a few times, but the thing is, you're talking about a substance which is highly addictive, which leaves a trail of destruction in its path in so many cases. And we are talking to people who have been through a similar experience or, life that we have, which is one where alcohol becomes ingrained. And it does it to so many, many people that I think to say that it is this useful tool for social lubrication and therefore it gives people who are maybe introverts the possibility to be slightly extrovert in a social situation where they can make friends is just completely banal to me. It just seems like, what are you actually serious? I mean, I get it. I do get it. Like you said, I drank because I was shy. I drank because it gave me that buzz, that excitement that I'm, bigger and better than who I am. But you're not. That's the point. You are you, and I think when you come to terms with you, that's when real happiness starts. And I, for one, I think what you always said, and this is something that sticks in my mind, and I know it's why in many ways you stopped, is you wanted to see what life was like without alcohol. Let's take a look. Because it does create intrigue. When you hear about people who don't drink, when you look at people who don't drink, and you see these people are having a good life, they are successful. And I don't mean in terms of necessarily financially. I mean successful in terms of how they manage their relationships, how they, live their day to day, all those sort of things, which to me are great successes. And I think it's an industry in decline. And I think, the label about cancer warnings. I believe people need the choice. I think, fundamentally we've said this millions of times, there are many people, our father, our wives, who can take it or leave it, who have that, ability to have a glass of wine. So I think people need the choice, and that choice comes when you know what it can do to you. So I think, like
Mm,
cigarettes,
mm,
I personally believe that there should also be calories on alcohol, because I
mm.
think for some people that can also be motivating.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
people, I know people who desperately try to lose weight, and or
Mm,
it's so hard. I'm eating, the diet of a fussy
mm,
child. Still
mm,
can't lose weight, and you're like, well, are you still going and hammering it on the weekends? Yes, I am.
mm,
Well,
mm,
maybe you should look at that. But
mm.
I digress. But I think it's an interesting article. I think it's
It also, sorry to interrupt, the thing that
yeah,
really pisses me off about it all, we've said this before, is it completely ignores the unpredictability of alcohol. You know, everybody responds to alcohol differently. You
yeah.
do.
You or I never set out to have. Well, I wouldn't say you had a major
I
issue with
didn't think,
alcohol.
oh, I'm going to start drinking so that it's going to be really problematic for me.
Yeah,
That would be a great thing to do.
yeah,
Nobody
that
does.
would be brilliant. When I'm in my early 40s, it causing me massive problems.
Mm,
That's
mm.
just what I want. Yeah.
But so that's what I was going to say is that it always ignores that one really critical thing. I always feel like it annoys me no, it doesn't annoy me, but I notice it in movies. You know, if you watch a James Bond movie, James Bond drinks a lot of alcohol and he'll go and have an absolute skinful. The next day he looks absolutely fine, bright-eyed, clear-eyed. You know, there's nothing. That is not the reality of how alcohol is, and it's this thing about drink responsibly. I don't think there's ever been a more pointless slogan. A sort of this sort of virtue signalling of trying to be seen to be doing the right thing, trying to be seen to be a conscientious provider of alcohol, because you drink responsibly. you, when I have a drink, that's the last thing I am. The way that my brain reacts to alcohol is that I become irresponsible. You know, that classic thing for me was that one was too many and 100 was never enough. That was the grip of it. And just to sort of really underline that point that makes this whole thing so fucking ludicrous about this is a social lubricant, is it's a ticking time bomb. Is what it is. And the point I was going to make to sort of prove that point is, if the drink driving thing, which we've touched on before, people think that drink driving is to do with the number of units of alcohol you consume. It isn't. It's about the number. It's about the amount of alcohol in your bloodstream. You and I could drink the same amount of alcohol and
Yeah.
drive home this evening, get stopped and breathalyzed. One of us could be over the limit, and one of us could be under the limit. It's to
Yeah.
do with your metabolism. It's to do with your your height, uh, BMI, body mass index. It's to do with what you've eaten. The other thing as well is that you have to recognise is that alcohol is a drug. It's a drug. It always makes me laugh when people say, "Don't do drugs. Never done drugs. Never done drugs." Yes, you fucking do. You take
Yeah.
ethanol regularly. You're a regular drug taker, right? Let's get this straight. And just doing the thing where I was doing too much talking, but I'm listening to a really, really good audiobook at the moment, and I'd recommend it to anybody. It's a book written by a lady called Katrina O'Sullivan, and the book is called Poor. I'm about probably a third of the way through it. She grew up basically the child of addicts. It's an incredibly powerful book. She's just such a great writer, and I'd probably encourage you to do the audiobook because she narrates it and she's quite emotional. You can feel it.
Mm.
One thing that she said today, funnily enough, ironically, was she said my mum was an addict. She was a heroin addict. She was addicted to alcohol. Blah blah. She said I'd much rather have my mum the heroin addict than my mum the alcohol addict. She said the heroin was awful and terrible, but I could handle my mum on heroin. Alcohol was the worst. She became horrible. She became violent. She became unpredictable. She became morose. So don't for 1 second think that alcohol is a better drug than any of these others, because it quite simply isn't. So I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but
No,
anyway.
no, I think it comes back to that whole thing where, you know, I disagree wholeheartedly with what they are trying to say in that article, because I think that you are suggesting, why not say Coke is a social lubricant? It is. I,
Yeah, sure is.
But you know, it's it's not good for you. You carries huge danger. You wouldn't promote it. You wouldn't suggest it's a good thing to do. You know, I just think people, like I say, people need the choice in life. I think that's so important, but they need to know the reality of what it is. And I think to start trying to dress up alcohol as something that is good for your mental health is just the wrong line, and it should be shot down straight away. And I think that was the gist of the article is you know, what are you trying to do here? You know, your
Yeah.
business is not, obviously not in trouble. Heineken's a giant, but you know, not performing as it
Well,
should. So
the
you're looking
way.
for a way to maybe, you know, entice more people in, and that's kind of. I think the reality is, and one of the great things is that you know drinking is in decline. Uh, like I say, I don't have any problem fundamentally with alcohol as it's a choice, but I think it's just around making it clear. It's like, you know, this is what this product is, and let's not dress it up anymore as the magic potion.
No, 100%. I think you nailed it 100% when you said it smacks of desperation. That's exactly what it smacks of. You know, the World Health Organization are basically now ramping up a campaign against even moderate drinking. You know, they're basically saying, look, don't kid yourself. This is really, really bad for you. And I think the message, probably just to sort of round this out, that I'd want to just share with anybody, you know, watching this, is that we're all on this podcast because we are a part of a group of people who, when we drink alcohol, we are unable to moderate. You know, we're not able to, you know, have just the sort of, you know, this drink responsibly, that slogan, that just doesn't apply to us, because if we could do that, we would do that. We drink for whatever reason, whether it's because you're shy, whether it's because you're overly stressed. One of the, again, there's a girl who comments on our YouTube, and she sort of said, my lingering question is constantly, why do we do it? You know, why do we do it? And I think there's so many reasons. It dampens out the noise. It can sort of turn the world down. But I think it's a dying breed. It's been found out. Alcohol has been found out. So if you're not watching this and you're thinking about, you know, maybe moderating, maybe quitting, you're on the right side of history. You're on the right. You're on the good. You're with the good guys. It's the right thing to do. And you know, the evidence is mounting up. You don't just have to take our word for it.
Yeah, and it's you know, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but that's the beauty of these things. We don't stick to a script. So you know, two things I read about this week, which I think are worth mentioning. One, which was just terrible, like really, really sad, which was, and this has happened in Laos and Vietnam, which is young people being sold alcohol. I think it was limoncello that had been made, but had been made with medical grade alcohol, which is different to ethanol, but it's still alcohol. And two young people had this bottle of limoncello, and 3 days later they were dead. And you just think, you know, is that a good message? Is that, I know it's not, you know, something that came from a supplier from, but you just think, you know, we need to make people aware that there are other choices. I went to Vietnam this summer, and I didn't drink, and I had an amazing time. It has nothing to do with those people. My deepest sorrow goes out to them, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they didn't know what it was. But there's so many things you hear about that you just think, God, that's just terrible. You know, what if there is another way? What if there
Yeah.
is another option? And I think that's where I'm going with this is, you know, there is another way, there is another option. You don't have to follow the crowd, you don't have to be looking for a social lubricant. You can just be you, and being you is, you know, it's great. You get to know yourself quite
It is
hard.
amazing. It is amazing. Yeah, it really is. It's such a liberating, freeing experience, and it opens up so many opportunities in the world for you. You know, not, you don't necessarily have to go climb Mount Everest. You just climb your own particular if just getting through the day without being honest with you, being honest to other people. Yeah, everything changes, and it does change for the better. And we are the sort of two examples of that. We've shared plenty of
Absolutely.
stories of what it was like when we were drinking. So cool. All right, perfect. Well, look, I think probably leave it there unless there's anything else.
No, I'm good. Let's wrap it up. Thank you everyone for sitting through it again. I know we have loyal people, and we really thank you for that. But if you're new, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. Look at our back catalogue. We've done quite a few of these now, and we continue. We're going to continue. So thank
Actually,
you.
that's a good point. You quite often get asked about why we don't have more viewers, why we're not more popular. I mean, I agree. How could we not be more popular? But so one of the things, having done a bit of research, is that we do need a minimum of 1,000 subscribers. We're very close. We're about 100 and something away from that, I think. So if you could do us a favour, if you could subscribe, if we can get those subscription numbers above 1,000, apparently that makes a
Yeah,
big difference. Then we can do things like hype up the audience and do things like that. So if you do us a favour, that'd be great. But either way, this is not done for promotion. It's done to help. So check out Poor by Katrina O'Sullivan. Get the audiobook. It's really, really good. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a fascinating listen. She does just such a brilliant job. But otherwise,
yeah. And leave your comments. What do you think about this topic? What do you think about Heineken coming out and saying this? Be really interested to hear.
exactly. All right. So for now, as I always say, never quit quitting. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him. Till the next time. Cheers. Bye for now.